Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? No? Okay. Trying to figure out where to hold this microphone. My name is Missy, and yes, we are starting our 5th year of the labor festivities. A little small group, but we will carry on. Oh, you can't hear me?
Yeah, you have to really talk loud.
All right. So, loud voices in the microphones. I'm usually not a loud person, so thank you for being here. So, my lovely quote is by Ralph Waldo Emerson, and it states, "Without ambition, one starts nothing. Without work, one finishes nothing. The prize will not be sent to you. You have to win it." I'm going to pass it on to Patrick Murfin. Right, thank you.
Hello, how you doing? This is the 5th year we've been back here at the square recreating a Labor Day tradition, and as you know, or may not know, there's a very close connection between Woodstock and Labor Day, thanks to the building that is over the buildings over here, especially the little building on the side of the courthouse, where Eugene V. Debs and the entire executive board of the American Railway Union were held for more than 6 months after the 1892 Pullman strike. They were brought up here after they were convicted of interfering with the mails, because the authorities were afraid that if they were held in Chicago, the workers of Chicago would march on the county jail and tear it down. They didn't think that would happen up here. But what did happen up here is that while Gene Debs and his boys were here, under the very caring and relaxed conditions that he was held because he became fast friends with the sheriff and his wife, was that Debs and his boys undertook a significant study of social conditions and socialism. Heretofore, Debs had been a militant union leader, but he was a rather run-of-the-mill Democrat politically. He was a Terre Haute, Indiana local official and served in the state legislature in Indiana as a Democrat. But while he was here, books were brought to him. And amongst those books was the very, very first English translation of Karl Marx's Das Kapital, which had just been months earlier published by Charles H. Kerr Company in Chicago. There were other materials, but they formed a study group, and by the time that Debs was released, he was a confirmed socialist. When he was released, a magical thing happened. You see this square? They let him out of that jail over here. About 5,000 workers from all across northern Illinois were here to greet him. 5,000. That must have scared the hell out of the local Republican group that was then, as now, in charge. Debs came over and gave a stump speech, and then he was hoisted on the shoulders of the workers and carried to the train station down here by the cheering crowd and put on a special express train to Chicago. And the train took him there, where he was met by thousands upon thousands more who cheered him. That connection between Eugene Debs and Woodstock puts us in the center of labor history. And we have much to learn from old Gene, who said many apropos things, but amongst them was something along the lines of, as long as there is a man in prison, I am with him. As long as there is a man in hell, I am with him. Eugene Debs understood the crucial value of solidarity. And I've talked about this in the past, but it's always worth reviewing. Solidarity is the great and undying working class virtue. And it differs from things that we think it might be like. Solidarity is not a gesture of benevolence handed down from above to below. It's not charity. Solidarity is not giving support out of the expectation of quid pro quo. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Solidarity is the great virtue of understanding that we as individuals and as a class owe it to each other to voluntarily support and stand with each other in thick and thin. Solidarity is what is called for today, maybe as much as any time in the 20th century. Since we've been coming here, we've seen ups and downs. The labor movement, which was maybe at a low ebb, is beginning to come back alive. On the other hand, it is under more intense direct attack by the national government and many state governments than ever before. Let me tell you, friends, Donald Trump, the Cheeto in charge, is not your friend. Too many workers were convinced last time around that maybe he was. A lot of them, just as the farmers who he convinced were his friends, are beginning to have strong second doubts. His full force attack on labor cannot go unnoticed. He's packed the National Labor Relations Board with his cronies, and they have issued order after order attacking almost every advantage that had been earned by labor through previous rulings by that board. Currently, the board is about to outlaw Scabby the rat, which originated here in these parts, because it hurts the tender feelings of the bosses. They're about to outlaw all sorts of picketing. They're about to outlaw the ability of workers to organize in places where their employers do not own the buildings. For instance, the case in point is symphony musicians, where they're not allowed to leaflet the public to inform them of their conditions because the symphony does not own the building. I could go on and on with these outrages. Another one is the recent raid just this last week on the headquarters of the United Auto Workers in Detroit, with all sorts of scandalous headlines indicating that there was some kind of nefarious criminal syndicalist cabal out to do all sorts of unsaid evil things. Those of us with a history here remember that criminal syndicalism was the charge brought against many labor people and sent thousands to prison, especially members of my old union, the IWW, the Industrial Workers of the World. And it just means that criminal syndicalism boils down to this: that it is a crime to get together with your fellow workers to conspire to do evil things like raise wages, reduce hours, and any other benefit. Now they're trying to make the charges against the union leaderships of the AAA, of the United Auto Workers, which have not yet been brought formally. They're trying to make it sound like it's organized crime. We don't know exactly what they're talking about, but I'm pretty sure that it is not organized crime. I'm pretty sure that the theory of the Justice Department under Trump is that we are all criminals, all of us criminals, when we stand up for our rights. The UAW is about to embark on national negotiations for a brand new contract. Surprise, surprise. This is just union busting on a grand scale. And folks, there's more and worse to come, because the money that supports Donald Trump and his cronies comes from a brand of so-called libertarians who are rabidly anti-labor, whose biggest and longest sought aim is to completely crush labor, and whose theory of prosperity is that American industry can thrive if American workers are reduced to the poverty level of the third world factories that produce our goods shoddily and cheaply. This is their operating principle. They don't talk about it in public, but that's what they want to do. And we have some other challenges, because the tactics that they use to achieve these goals are to divide you and me from other people in our own class and under our own conditions. That is what the attack on immigrants and immigration is all about. The attempt to divide so-called Native American white workers with the brown workers from Latin America. Let us fight amongst ourselves so we do not fight them. That is why they are repealing all sorts of long fought for voting privileges and rights in many states to try and undermine the ability of people to vote. And who are they trying to undermine the ability to vote? Mostly, not exclusively, but mostly people of color, especially African Americans. There are daily attacks on women and their own autonomous rights to their body. There are attacks on gay, lesbian, transgender people. All of these are meant to divide you and I from them and they. We cannot abide that. We need to stand in that great tradition of Eugene P. Debs, the American labor movement, and solidarity. And that's all of the bloviating I'm going to do on the subject. But we do have some interesting speakers lined up, and then an opportunity for those of you who would like to share your own thoughts to come and engage in an open mic period. And at any time, you can come up here and sign up for the open mic following the scheduled speakers. I encourage you, if you're even thinking about saying something, please come up. Our first speaker is Patty Boyd, who works at the Cook County Clerk's Office. And McHenry County. I know we're not in Cook County. McHenry County Clerk's Office, and whose union is now in negotiations with the county for a decent contract. And Patty would like to tell you all about it.
Hi folks, I am from our local circuit clerk's office. We are currently in negotiations. We have been without a contract for 7 months now. Actually, I think we're at 8 months now. We understand that working for county government, you are never going to get rich. It just doesn't happen. But we would like to have a living wage. In our office, almost every employee has at least one, sometimes more than one other job besides their full-time job. At one point, I had 4 jobs, 1 full-time, 3 part-time in order to pay my bills and be able to feed, clothe, school my children. I lived in my car for a couple of months while I was employed by the county. If you are single, what they pay you will not give you a place to live, food, utilities. It just doesn't do it. We want them to up the starting wage because we want to attract quality people. Our job is important. One of the things is, what a lot of people don't realize, there are actually 2 clerk offices in our county. There is the county clerk, which handles marriage certificates, death certificates, birth certificates, assumed name, notary public, the elections, voter registration. And then there's the circuit clerk, which deals with the court end of things. We deal with the public. When they come in, they have to go to court, they have to pay their fines, they want to file a lawsuit, they're defending from a lawsuit, they want to adopt someone. There's countless things that we do. We have about 40 people who are in our collective bargaining unit. And we deal with a lot. Most of the people that come into our office are not happy. Who wants to go pay their traffic fines for a traffic ticket? Who wants to be arrested? Who wants to be sued for a credit card bill? Nobody. They're already upset when they come in. So it's our job to try and give them the best experience that we can in a bad situation, to give them the best information, to provide them with what they need to do the best job that they can for themselves. We are prohibited from giving legal advice, but we try very hard to guide people through the system with forms, with the Supreme Court, as of January 1st of 2018, has made all civil filings electronic. In their infinite wisdom, they chose a company to provide us with this system, and it is not a user-friendly system. There is not one place in this state, not one person who likes this system. So when John Doe off the street comes in and tries to use this system, they can't figure it out. It is not user-friendly. We do our level best. We have people standing by to teach you how to scan your documents, upload them, get them processed for you. Sometimes we have to be counselors. When you have the parents coming in to file an eviction case because their adult child is making their life a living hell, and the mother is crying her eyes out to have to evict her child, but has to do it for the younger kids who are still at home. When someone's just had a death in the family and they have to come in and file the will or file a probate case or try and navigate through their grief. They're not in good places, and we do our best to try and help them. Even with traffic tickets, to try and give them all their options and let someone choose so that they're informed and they're not just randomly making a decision that later will hurt them. In order to do this, we need trained people. We don't have them. We get someone in, we train them, they leave again because they can make more money in other county offices than they can in our office. I've been there for 27 years. Most of that time I was married so I could afford to work there. Now I do extra jobs to try and make ends meet. But I know my job. I have valuable information. If I leave, there are people who will not be able to answer the questions that I can answer. A woman came in a couple of weeks ago and needed information from a small claims case back in 1991. The girls at the counter, who are brand new, haven't even been there 6 months, said, "We don't have the information." We did. They didn't know where to look for it. I said, "Wait a minute. I know, it's right there." We need to keep people. We need to be able to pass on this information. When I retire, no one else is going to know. We need to be able to pay the people starting out a living wage. Right now, we're just asking for $14.50 an hour to start. That's it, because we're at $12.50 right now, and you're not getting quality people, let me tell you. And for people like me, someone who comes in off the street now is almost making more than what I make after being there that long. That's pathetic. I'm not expecting to get rich. I'm not asking to get rich. I'd like to be able to pay all my bills in the same month. Maybe have a little bit left over and go to a movie or something. But we don't have that luxury, so I work extra jobs. We have a lot of information. We get people in doing genealogy, listening to our other speaker talking about the history on the square here. We had the first hanging here on this square. James Stacy, he murdered a man in Cook County over political elections. They were running candidates for alderman. His candidate lost. He met the other guy in an alley, killed him. He was kept here in our jail, and he was hung here, even though the murder happened in Cook County. At one point in time, McHenry County used to be part of Cook County. This is all stuff you learn. We have so many historic files. Our files go back to the beginning of the county, back in the 1800s. It takes a lot to figure out how to navigate through to find this information, but you can find probate cases, you can find murder cases, horse thievery. There was a lot of that in the early days, let me tell you. It's interesting. It's an interesting job, and I love helping people. There's nothing I like better than when somebody comes in and they're all upset, they've been trying to get something done and they can't, and they walk away smiling. Their situation may still suck, but they feel a little bit better about it. Yes, they might still lose their house, but they feel a little bit better and they have a few more options of things that they can do. But we have such a revolving door. You have one section of the office that's been there less than a year, and then the other section that's been there like 20 years. That's it. There's nothing in between because they don't stay. They have families at home. They have kids they have to take care of, put through college. They've got bills to pay. I get it. So we're trying to convince the county board to give us a little extra money. Unfortunately, previous county boards have kind of made a mess out of the pay scales in the county. Our county board that we currently have is a good county board. Do not mistake that. They do a good job being fiscally responsible for your tax money, my tax money. I love when somebody comes into our office and says, I pay your salary, because they pay taxes. Well, I pay my salary too, because I pay taxes too. But they don't stop to think about that. But to be fiscally responsible, you need to pay people enough that they're going to stay here for some period of time, that you're going to let them get trained. It's just throwing money right out the window to let them keep on leaving, or take our knowledge and go somewhere else, go work for a law firm, go work for another office. That's not good use of county funds. I realize it'll be tight for them to give us the raises that we'd like, and we're not asking for a lot. But it would be good for the taxpayers, for the county, for the people that come in and use our courthouse. I'm not sure how to get through to them, but I go to the county board meetings, which is where Misty saw me, and I keep on telling them, and I will keep on telling them. And hopefully they'll listen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patty. I'm sure you can help Patty if you can contact your McHenry County board members. Look them up. Tell them that you're concerned about this issue. Talk to Jack Franks, who's running the show over there. Tell him that you're concerned about this issue. Talk to Joe Tirio, who's double duty in both of those clerk's offices she talked about, and who was rabidly anti-union. Talk to them all. And if you can't get their attention any other way, there's an election coming up, and there are some remedies for that. You may hear some more about that later. But give them a hand, folks. That's what solidarity is all about. Our next speaker has also been here before and has had a lot of experience in one of the areas of the labor movement that has been most successful over the last 40 or 50 years. That is the labor movement in education. Michael Williamson is, among many hats within his organization, the president of LEAD 300. That is the union representing the teachers and the educational support personnel in District 300, which is based out of Elgin. One of the second largest school district, as I recall, in the fifth largest school district in Illinois. And it's affiliated with the Illinois Education Association and the National Education Association. So let's give a warm welcome to Michael.
Right, thanks. So first off, can you hear me back there? Out there? No. You hear me better now? Yes. All right. So
in the microphone.
I got to do it into the microphone. If I feed it back, I'm sorry. All right. Let me start by saying this. If it's a criminal act to organize people for better wages, then I'm a damn criminal. Yeah. I got the worst eyesight in this park, so I got to hear you. All right. And so let's start by celebrating the criminality that Patty and I are sharing, organizing people for better wages. Keep on, Patty, you're going to win that. And it takes all of us to do that. So, not too long ago, 35,000 teachers in West Virginia went on strike. Was that legal?
No.
No. Did it work?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Oklahoma, Colorado, Arizona. Okay? And the states just keep on going. So if the federal government, not really the federal government, let's word this correctly. If a group of clowns in a car masquerading as a government want to get out and tell us it's illegal to organize, they better get out the way. Because we're coming. And let's talk real quick, and I hate to belabor a point, but let's talk real quick about a union buster. And by the way, let me back up and say this. The day after Donald Trump was elected, I called Illinois Education Association's executive director, who's a friend of mine, and said, well, it's about damn time. And she went, what are you saying? I said, I'm not celebrating him, but it's about damn time we settled this whole labor argument with a good dust-up. Because if you want to argue about whether or not labor has a place in this country, let's go, but we're going to win, like we have been winning for 125 years. If you want to argue about whether or not educators or bus drivers or symphony orchestra players or nurses or theater workers or auto workers or any of the other groups that are unionized have a right to a living wage, let's go ahead and have that argument, but we're going to win. Yeah? Let's hear that louder. Yeah? Better, thank you. So let me talk then about the union buster who hopped into the Illinois government for a while. Remember him? Don't get me down, Bruce. But the problem is, what happens when you get a union buster? We all get a little sick of it. So Buster found himself out of a job. Buster got busted, and about the only thing he has to show for himself is, hey, boys, I really tried to do something about the unions, and all I really did was make them stronger. There are 135,000 IEA members, Illinois Education Association members, and I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of what I do. And it's a little weird, I'm gonna be honest, okay? So along with being a criminal because I, organize people all the time, for better wages, which apparently is going to be criminal. I have to put on armor every day. And I'm a little out of sorts standing here in a t-shirt because my armor currently is a suit. There's something I never thought I'd say. I didn't wear a suit when I was in the classroom constantly, but I wear a suit now when I deal with administrators and lawyers all the time. And it's a weird place to be. So being out here on a day made for labor, being dressed this way because I can be, because they gave us a day, is an important thing. Okay? This in and of itself is a win that we had as a labor movement. And again, I'm very proud of that. Yeah. So education workers put on armor every morning. Every morning you get up, whether you're a bus driver or a custodian or a cafeteria worker or a secretary or a paraeducator or a teacher or a counselor or a school nurse or a psychologist or a social worker or any of the other 70,000 categories of jobs that are education workers, and that number is real, okay? Whatever category you come from, you get up every morning and you put on armor. And that armor you put on is the face you put on to make sure that you are resilient for children. Because children come in, whether they're birth to pre-K children who are still trying to find their voice because their diaphragm is so weak they can't speak yet, or 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds that are still in our system and are still trying to find their voice because of stuff that's gone on that's made it difficult for them to finish. Regardless of who they are, we have to be resilient for our students, which means I have to come in and I have to be able to say, let me have it, because we're going to get there. Because every single child comes to school full of possibilities. And every single educator's job is to help that child make what he or she can only dream of possible. That's what we do. So we put on our armor and we get on the bus with the 3-year-olds, which is kind of terrifying. That's not what I could handle, okay? Or we go into the classroom with the angry kids that are almost graduated because it's a couple weeks before the end of school and they just don't want to be there, and we're still making things possible. That's what we do. And somehow, I mean, all you got to do is look a few miles north here to the state that just destroyed its education system by getting rid of every possible stopgap measure to make sure that educators earn a living wage and can be resilient for their children. Okay? All you got to do is look to Wisconsin. And yeah, we got rid of that buster too. Yeah. Oh yeah, let's hear that again. Yeah. How many people are excited that Scott Walker took a permanent walk? Yeah. Yeah. How many people are excited that Bruce Brown or Mr. Buster Brown got busted down? Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Because what happens when labor gets angry? We belabor the point until somebody gets busted out. And that's how it's going to be. And that's why Patty's going to win. Because if we have to bust out a few people who aren't doing their job, who are saying fiscal, 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 which really means I don't wanna. Okay? So we're sitting in and let me actually back up and say this really quick. Did you know that until about, I think it was last year, the Illinois School Board Code that school board members had to take mentioned fiduciary responsibility, but it didn't mention children? How about them apples? Whoa. Yeah, thank you. You got the callbacks going. Let's do this. All right, so luckily we've added those apples to the school board, but we're sitting at a school board meeting just recently, and we had added just a little bit of money to our paraeducators. And an individual got up and said, I want you to know that I represent taxpayers. And I got to thank our board, because one of our board members went, everybody in the room is a taxpayer. No, really? Because we're all taxpayers. But apparently this dude represented me and everybody else who pays taxes, which is part of being part of society. And he asked, do paraeducators really need more money? I mean, are they really accomplishing anything anyway? His words. Yeah, I thought the room was going to go nuts. We all kind of looked at the para-president, who I think was still trying to figure out if she'd actually heard that. Most paraeducators work 3 jobs. Quite a few of them work just to get insurance. They make almost nothing. And yet they're the hands that make sure our most fragile children are prepared to learn and are prepared to be every day. Heard a story just recently from an occupational therapist, excuse me, about a child so fragile that they had to put padding over all of the corners in the room. Because if that child were to bump into any corner, that would be sharp enough to cause issue for that child. So they did it. They got rid of the corners. And I think there's a metaphor lying here that's important. As an educator, I had a round table at the front of my classroom. I work mostly with juniors and seniors in high school, mostly very, very articulate students in debate and AP language classes. And my students were invited always to move up to the round table for discussion. They could do it, they didn't have to ask, they simply did it. We got rid of the corners on that table because corners always cause damage. Because really, as educator, it's our job to make sure that nobody's ever in the corner, so that they're never in the corner in society later on. Okay, we know those metaphors. Those were some pretty evil metaphors of the past about putting somebody in the corner when they had done something wrong. Well, as you can imagine, I may have spent some time as a child in the corner for having a mouth. Usually because of my mom, but she's not here to call me out. But my job then became, we built the round table. This occupational therapist put the padding over the edges. We do this because not only are the corners dangerous, but they're not where anybody needs to be. Because my job now, that I represent 1,600 people in District 300, and that I'm on executive committee for IEA and represent 135,000 people in the state of Illinois, my job now is to make sure that no one's voice is ever stuck in the corner, that everybody has a seat at the great round table that is organized labor. Because what we do here is make sure that workers have a voice. Solidarity is an important thing, and so I'm going to ask you to call back something to me. I'm going to say we are all stronger when we, and you're going to say, are united. You got it? Yeah. We are all stronger when we are united. We are all stronger when we are united. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm always delighted that the art of good old-fashioned soapboxing has not died out completely. And I grew up soapboxing, so it's a thrill. Our next speaker has also been on the stage at a number of different events, and has something important, is particularly important and apropos to share with you today. Peter Janko is the Democratic State Central Committeeman for the 14th Congressional District, and he is also a candidate for state representative in the Illinois 63rd District this next fall. A crucial race where we have an opportunity to throw out one of the most troglodyte of all the Republicans in the state legislature, and that's saying something. So I'm proud to present my friend, Peter Janko.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, can everybody hear me? Yes. All right, well, good morning. Thank you for coming out today. My name is Pete Janko, and been involved with labor for a very long time. So I'm also, besides a candidate, I'm also on the board of directors of the Preservation Trades Network, which is a labor group closely associated with the National Park Service that has a lot of apprentice programs for our youth. So anyway, let me get started. Okay, today, adequate basic health care, income inequality, and the need for a living wage, freedom from student debt, good quality jobs are consistently in the headlines. The United States is behind almost every other industrialized country on the planet when it comes to worker benefits. The people in those other countries did not get those benefits through the generosity of their politicians and the ruling class. They got those benefits by endlessly and consistently fighting for them, and not surprisingly, organized labor is usually at the forefront. I'm going to read you a speech now from one of our former presidents, John F. Kennedy. Those who would destroy or further limit the rights of organized labor, those who would cripple collective bargaining or prevent organization of unorganized, do a disservice to the cause of democracy. 50 years ago or so, the American labor movement was little more than a group of dreamers. And look at it now. From coast to coast, in factories, stores, warehouses, establishments of all kinds, industrial democracy is at work. Employees represented by free and democratic trade unions of their own choosing participate actively in determining their wages, hours, and working conditions. Their living standards are the highest in the world. Their job rights are protected by collective bargaining agreement. They have fringe benefits that were unheard of less than a generation ago. Our labor unions are not narrow, self-seeking groups. They have raised wages, shortened hours, provided supplemental benefits through collective bargaining and grievance procedures. They have brought justice and democracy to the shop floor, but their work goes beyond their own jobs and even beyond our borders. Our unions have fought for aid to education, for better housing, for development of national resources, and saving the family-sized farms. They have spoken not for narrow self-interest, but for the public interest and for all people. John F. Kennedy, August 30th, 1960. That was a half a century ago. So what we've seen in this last half a century is a fight to turn everything back by conservatives. Fortunately, we're gaining those back, but the key to that is we need to have more progressive legislators. We need to get politicians who are pro-worker, who are looking out for our self-interest. We need to get them elected. Now, what's interesting is all of these anti-union people, they like to crap on the unions, okay? But what they won't do is, I've never had one volunteer to give up what the unions have gotten for them, whether they're against the union or not, okay? There's 36 reasons we all benefit from unions. I'm not going to read all of them, but I'm going to read some of the key ones. One is weekends. Has anybody ever heard an anti-union person say, I want to give up my weekends? No, I didn't think so. How about breaks, works, including lunch breaks? Has anybody ever heard an anti-union person say, oh, I willingly want to give up all my breaks and lunch breaks and I just want to work through? No, of course not. Okay, 8-hour workday. Has anybody said, let's go back to 10, 12-hour work days? No. How about the 40-hour work week? You know, in the 50s, the 60-hour work week was the norm. It was unions that got us the 40-hour work week. The pensions and Social Security, that was unions that pushed for that, and we got it. Child labor laws. I mean, how many anti-union people do you see? I want to have my 6-year-old work in a factory. Really, honestly, we don't. Okay, employer-paid dental, vision, and life insurance. I'm for Medicare for all, but guess what? Most union people don't want to give up theirs because they have a great insurance benefits. I'd like to see those benefits expanded to everyone. I don't want to take labor's benefits away. They fought for it. They deserve it. but we should all get that as well. The minimum wage, okay? Everybody that's a conservative seems to be against the minimum wage, but I have yet to have them explain to me how people living from paycheck to paycheck fuel the economy. When we have good paying jobs, we create businesses, restaurants pop up, small businesses pop up. Those would not happen when people can't afford to live and they're just living to pay bills. So occupational safety and health, that was all fought for by the unions. Okay, how many people have ever heard an anti-union person say, I'm against safety in the workplace? None. So really what we need to do is not pay attention to these people. What we need to do is we need to get out there and continue our fight and join the rest of the world in some of the benefits that we have for the middle class.
Preach it, Pete!
Pardon me?
Preach it, Pete!
Preach it, Pete. By the way, I passed out these cards for anybody that doesn't have them. Come and see me. It has all 36 benefits. I don't have to read them to you. And I get off the stage and let the next person talk. So thank you for having me out today, and enjoy the day.
That's great. Thank you, Peter. We have another speaker who has also been here in the past. Before I introduce him, though, I'd like to reiterate a call. If any of you would like to participate in the open mic section of the program, which is going to follow shortly, please come up here and introduce yourself to me and sign in. I saw a young woman that arrived with a guitar. I don't suppose you sing labor songs, do you?
Not yet.
Yes, no?
No, not quite.
Okay, I was hoping that we want to close this event singing "Solidarity Forever." We can do it a cappella, but if someone knows how to play it, that'd be great. Okay, but our next speaker, who has been here before and who is very knowledgeable about these topics, is Brian Duprees, who is on the executive board of the state AFL-CIO. Brian?
Thank you.
Yeah, yell into it.
Yeah, you just have to yell it.
Hello. First of all, I'm on the Lake and McHenry County AFL-CIO board. I do want to clarify that.
Sorry about that.
That's fine. I did have some surgery which left me with a bit of a raspy voice, so I'm doing my best to get this out to you. I hope you'll give me some leeway on that. I'm a retired letter carrier, 42 years and eight months. Woo! Thank you. And I capped out my benefits at 41 years, 11 months. And I just wanted to share with you, first of all, if you're taking a picture by chance, I have a tooth missing that I bit into a granola bar the other day. And one of the things as you get older that you learn, you have to be very careful what you're biting into. Because your teeth get a little brittle. So no matter how well you've taken care of yourself, it's just part of the aging process. So the dentist gave me the estimate, and also now your standard of care in this type of situation are implants. And anybody who's never ever had an implant knows they're not cheap. In my case, the temporary implant, even though I have some dental insurance, $1,700. That's not the permanent implant. That's the cost for the temporary in the meantime. So we're in negotiations about that. But this relates to health care. It's not about me. I'll get this taken care of. But that's how expensive health care can be. And in this country, the wealthiest country on earth, still, when you add the whole wealth up, for people not to have health care is just not right. Now, thank you. My monthly payment for even though I qualified for Medicare, I kept my federal employee. Medicare doesn't cover a fair amount of expenses. So I've kept my federal employee health plan, which is a great health plan, but even the considered great health plans, well, let me tell you, I pay $393.49 each month for my wife and I for our share of the coverage. I pay $102.14 for the federal dental insurance, which will cover maybe 40–50% of my dental expenses. And I pay $19.57 for vision insurance. And I'm sharing that because it's important to know that even union members like myself are still paying a fair amount of their income in health insurance costs. And we expect to. We expect to share the cost of health insurance. That's what insurance is all about. Spreading the cost amongst a large group. So, moving on. One of the things that's going to happen next year that I think really needs to be stressed is the census 2020. There will be a need to count everyone, and I say everyone that's in the country, not just citizens, everyone. One of the reasons that's so important is that cities and municipalities and school districts, many things, their funding depends on how many people they serve in their local population. So if you have a city of 130,000 people, and they're going to be undercounted for whatever reason, and I have to think that the administration right from Washington is playing a large role in this, driving people into the shadows, where they do not necessarily want the federal government or anyone else. They're just concerned, okay? Understandably so. When our nation is at the point where they actually invite people to come who have rare medical conditions, come to this country so that we can study the medical condition they have, but because they're here on temporary visas. I don't know if you've heard recently, but they've been disinvited. They're being told, your visas are not going to be renewed, and you are going to need to leave the country within 33 days. And these are people with life-threatening, they're not here because they've got minor illnesses, they've got life-threatening illnesses that they can't be served in their home country. So in effect, if we're booting these people out of the country, which has been, that's what's been instructed, the letters have already gone out. Reprehensible is the only, I don't have words to describe that cruelness. ICE is getting a very bad reputation. It used to be about protecting our borders, drug smuggling, and now they're engaging in, I just have to call it what it is, getting people out of color, predominantly, I'm not saying all, but removing the voters that aren't going to be supporting them. It's political. It is political. I will say one thing about gun rights too. Pete, when I was sitting together there, and he mentioned something about the Trump supporters, and I have friends, I will say misguided, but you know, our big backers of gun rights. Well, and that's not, there's nothing wrong with being for gun rights. It's a civil liberty. However, most, even NRA members, are for responsible, and in my youth, it was the NRA's main thing they did was educate young people that were getting guns. That was the biggest part of their program, was how to own a firearm safely, how to fire one safely. It was all about training and safety. Now it's different. It's just different. And the thing that occurred to me when Pete brought his point up is, where are the Republicans on other civil liberties other than gun rights? You won't find them. Very few. There are some. I'm not across the board, but we don't get any leadership in that area. Let's put it that way. All right, I'm not going to go on. I think one thing I'd like to say is that Lauren Underwood is going to be she'll be running for re-election here.
Yeah!
Woo! And I believe it's actually the 9th that there's an event for getting signatures, a little something going on with the Progressive Dems, or maybe it's Lake County Dems, or McHenry County Dems. But I really hope that Lauren gets your support, and you can help her in any way that you see right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Lauren was here with us last year, and those of you who are here might remember that the sky opened up and it was like the bottom of Niagara Falls here on the square before she came on, and those of us who were hardy went down to the poorhouse over here and packed the place and listened to Lauren and a number of other speakers give some of these important lessons. Today we have no rain, no gully washer. We have wonderful blue skies and mild temperatures. So somebody is smiling on our efforts. We've reached the open mic portion of the thing, and again, if anyone out there would like to add their 2 cents, please come in. But I have one person signed up, and and this is again a person whose job and position is close to my own. Some of you know that I was a a 20-year career school custodian in Cary School District 26 before they decided I was too. I would need that for a second.
More notes.
Before they decided that I was making too much money and involuntarily retired me. That's because they could do that because despite my own interest, we never got a union in District 26. Well, McHenry schools have a union for the educational support people. These are all the critical people who do all the tasks around education that includes custodial work, cafeteria workers, many bus drivers, many other of the critical jobs without which any school cannot operate. And I'm really proud to present Louis Aguilar to talk about that.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me out there? Well, thank you for the invitation, Missy. I heard about the Labor Day progressive open mic, and I said, yeah, sure, I like to open my mouth on a day we got given here today, thanks to unions. More about the union efforts I've been putting forth. Yes, over in District 156, both East and West Campus, we've just successfully approved a contract that over a year and a half we've been negotiating for. With overwhelming approval from our membership, we've voted to pass the contract. And now it's going to be passed on to the Board of Education now to actually approve of that. But this whole experience, I don't know anything about starting a union, but when I first heard about it, I guess a little history on myself. I was a delegate for Senator Sanders in 2016. I represented District 14, Congressional District 14, like Peter Janko here. And this might be surprising, but I did register to be his delegate again for the 2020 run. So yeah, I'm going to take my experience from the past and what I've learned from Bernie and from so many people, ever since the 2016 election and being so destitute to the results. It just kind of left me, well, what do I do now? I'm not always going to have the senator there for me. So yes, in 2017 is when I started passing around those authorization cards, like people getting scared, like, is this okay to sign right here, right now? Like, it's very easy starting a union and getting the support, starting the bylaws, creating the bylaws, and it's been a great, amazing experience. I learned so much about insurance, learning so much about tuition reimbursement, about everybody's reason for it was to increase the lowest paid workers in our union, in our entity. That was such a long, hard battle because, well, I could go on about the whole contract. I know it shouldn't be discussed yet because it's not public, but it was just a very hard uphill climb to get the right benefits and the right just recognition that you are a working member of the district and you don't deserve to be living in poverty wage for working for so long. It's kind of ridiculous seeing the numbers from what we were in 2017, and once it becomes public on September 16th, I believe, is when we will have that Board of Education meeting over at District 156. The whole contract would be public, and all I can say is that my UNISERV director, who's been pretty much our lawyer throughout the whole process, she's been saying that this has been the most impressive contract she has ever seen in Region 23. So, yes. I can finally go home and go to bed and think that I can't believe I just helped so many of my employees, my coworkers, insurance, their wages, so many. I mean, it's just our first contract, and from there, it builds on. And that's what I want to pass on the message is start the union, and it may not be perfect, but at least you have a start now to start chiseling what you want exactly in the next coming years. So we have a contract until hopefully 20. Well, I don't even know if I can share that, but yes, it's the cycle will start over. We'll negotiate for the things that we couldn't get, and that's the fight. You got to continue that fight. So thank you.
Sure wish I had that. Our next speaker, you might have encountered, he's been doing educational work around the county because he is the chairman of Internet Freedom for McHenry County, which is addressing a critical need for complete access to the internet on an equitable basis, on a public basis, all over the county. And he'll explain it to you. Here is David Gutowsky.
Thanks, Patrick. Can everybody hear me?
Louder. Loud into the mic.
Louder.
Raging.
So I'll just yell. So, hi, I'm the chairman and founder of the Internet Freedom for McHenry County. Internet Freedom for McHenry County is a nonprofit organization designated to advocate for a number of different things, but primarily we're here to advocate for internet access for everyone throughout the county. We're trying to bring cheaper, faster internet for everyone. Hearing the ambulance in the background. Must be in Chicago. And so the objective, we've heard from a number of different people, from the educators, from other unions and everything else. But the thing is that internet access impacts all of us, especially the educators that are trying to reach the children that they're trying to educate. And as the time goes on, the digital gap gets wider and wider. So unions are becoming less and less popular, so therefore wages are being driven down. And of course we have a monopolistic type system regarding internet access. A lot of people don't even have viable internet access. If they do, it's really expensive and it really doesn't help a lot of our low income people, including minorities. So if we are to close that gap of education and having all the tools possible to actually educate our children and to give all of our teachers and all of our administrators all that possibility, needs to be able to have the internet at home. And so that impacts everybody. And especially we are now what's considered the digital age. We're not even in the industrial age anymore, we're now in the digital age. And so having equitable internet access impacts a larger number of workers than it ever has. And if you don't have that cheaper, faster internet for everyone, workers are going to be left behind everywhere. And our communities are going to be left behind, especially up here in Woodstock. In the more rural parts, we're not going to see that. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to close that gap by saying, hey, we're going to build fiber optics to everyone. We're going to have it built by a cooperative and managed and safeguarded by a cooperative, which is a very union type thing.
Yeah.
It's owned by the people. It's owned by you guys. If we build it, it's owned by you, and you guys get to dictate what you want to do with it. And thirdly, it's going to be open access, which means there's going to be open competition. So you got two things. You got one that is going to be building it everywhere, and you're going to have open competition. And so that's what Internet Freedom's about, and that's what we're trying to do. And so we're trying to do this for every worker, everybody and everywhere, to give everybody an equal chance to be able to do that, to be able to compete in this global market that we have. And it's becoming more and more difficult every day. And so there's a thing that's been going around, especially with Charter, to kind of pitch into this. Charter is a cable company in a lot of different parts of McHenry County. They offer, telephone and television and internet and all that kind of stuff. Their union workers haven't had a contract for years. It's been going on for years. And so the fight continues for all that. And if you go online, you can find all about it. But they've been trying to get a contract for their union workers, and they haven't been capable of doing that. They haven't been able to get that. And so they currently run without a contract right now. And of course, ATT, which is one of our primary incumbents, they've been laying workers off for years. So as time goes on, our telecommunication workers are becoming less and less numerous, and Peter Janko can allude to that because he's a former telecommunication worker, or maybe he still is. I don't know. So, but you know, IT workers. I'm an IT veteran. I've been in the industry for 15 years, and there's almost no presence of a union for us. And so our developers, which are now essentially the middle class of workers who create all your apps and everything and to maintain all the software that you use, they're almost not represented by union workers whatsoever. Because we are higher paid, but the problem is we're still not represented. And so, you know, we don't have great insurance and everything else. And so that's why personally I advocate for Medicare for all.
Absolutely.
Because Medicare for all will bring that level playing field for everybody. And so we all get insurance. And so that way, if I have a 6-month contract, which is very common in IT, which is I'm a contract in most places. Most Google workers are actually contractors. They're actually not part of the union. They're also not full-time employees. So all those great benefits that Google workers like to brag about and how they have chefs making them dinner and all this other crap, nope. Most union workers can't even get that. I'm sorry, most workers, contractors, don't get that at all. They just don't. And so our IT industry is totally being underrepresented by unions, period. And I don't know what the solution is, but I just know that they're not getting it. And we're also missing out on some benefits. So I want to thank you all for today, for being here. So thank you so much. And thanks for having me up here. And have a great day.
All right, folks, we got a couple more people who've signed up for our open mic. The first of which should not be a stranger here. He's been one of the primary organizers of this event over the past 5 years and is extremely active in the progressive movement in McHenry County. Steve Stukenberg.
Steve.
Thank you, everybody. I'm going to kind of bring it back to where we all started with this 5 years ago, and a little homage to Eugene Debs, who was the famous prisoner at Woodstock jail. So I'm going to read you a speech, parts of a speech from 1918. So I'm going to transform into Eugene Debs. Now I'm Eugene Debs, okay? John D. Rockefeller has today an income of $60 million a year, $5 million a month, $200,000 a day. He does not produce a penny of it. I make no attack upon Mr. Rockefeller personally. I do not dislike him. I have no quarrel with Mr. Rockefeller personally, nor with any other capitalist. I am simply opposing a social order in which it is possible for one man who does absolutely nothing that is useful to amass a fortune of hundreds of millions of dollars, while millions of men and women who work all the days of their lives secure barely enough for existence. This order of things cannot always endure, and I have registered my protest against it. And I recognize the feebleness of my effort. But, unfortunately, I am not alone. There are multiplied thousands of others who, like myself, have come to realize that before we may truly enjoy the blessings of civilized life, we must reorganize society upon a mutual and cooperative basis. And to this end, we have organized a great economic and political movement that spreads over the face of all the earth. There are today upwards of 60 million of socialists, democratic socialists, regardless of nationality, race, creed, color, or sex. They are waiting, they are watching, and they are working through all the hours of the day, but they are still in the minority. But they have learned how to be patient and to bide their time. They feel that the time is coming. In spite of all the opposition, all persecution, when this emancipating gospel will spread among all the peoples, and when this minority will become a triumphant majority, and sweeping into power will inaugurate the greatest social and economic change in history. So that was a speech from 101 years ago, almost to the day, by Eugene Debs. We're still waiting. Yes, Debs called it the emancipating gospel. All of us here know what that is. That is fair treatment in the workplace. It is the right to organize. It is the right to health care. It is the pathway for citizenship. It is a living wage. The emancipating gospel is a strong middle class, and in my opinion, the emancipating gospel is a platform of my man, Bernie Sanders. Yep. Yes, Mr. Eugene Debs, that day you spoke of in 1980, and we are still waiting in 2019. We are still waiting for that day. We must continue to pay attention. I don't know about you, but I pay attention every day, and I'm sick. I'm horrified. And I guess it's by design. I don't know where to put my emotions to. And that's why I'm here. And that's why you're here. We must continue to show up to everything. We must continue to use our First Amendment right to peaceably assemble. Yes. And someday, hopefully next November 2020, our day will come. Thank you.
Bravo! Thanks, Steve.
Well, I'm proud to be wearing a reproduction of Eugene Debs's campaign button for when his last run for the presidency, when he was in Atlanta prison for giving an anti-war speech at the end of World War I. He spent much longer under much more harsh conditions in federal prison in Atlanta than he did over here. But he ran for president as a federal prisoner under the socialist ticket. It was his last great campaign. And I want to remind you that the Socialist Party platforms of those days are all of the things that we take for granted. The minimum wage against child labor, 8 40-hour work days, 8-hour days, Social Security, and the as yet unattained medical insurance for all. If Gene Debs could and his people could do that all those years ago, we can take up the battle again. And the final speaker that I've got here, is still time for someone to come up, is one of my oldest friends and dearest compadres. We have been together countless times over 25, 30 years in so many social justice causes in McHenry County. Carlos Acosta was noted as the foremost and most widely recognized voice of the Latino community in McHenry County. He has, in the last election, surprised and stunned the Republican establishment by being elected as a McHenry County board member from District 5. And he's also a longtime union man with the SEIU, representing his lifelong career as a social worker. So it is my deepest privilege to invite Carlos.
only been 20 years. I'm not that old.
I'm that old.
It feels like 30. I just wanted to take a minute to talk a little bit and give you kind of a snapshot of what is the state of organized labor at the county building. I'm glad to say that over 60% of the workforce for McHenry County government is organized and is represented by different unions. Organized labor gained some allies on the county board last November with the election of 4 Democrats, myself, Kelly Wegner, Suzanne Ness, and Michael Bijik, who is a retired teacher. But we don't have the majority. We have the opportunity to have some conversations, but we don't control the agenda. I sit right next to Chuck Wheeler, who's one of the most conservative, most anti-labor members of the board. So that really, to me, that tells me that we have a county government that is in transition when it comes to its support of organized labor. Right now we have at least 5 different negotiations going on with organized labor, 2 with different units of the FOP, 2 contracts with the operating engineers, and the contract with the circuit clerk that's currently represented by MAP. All of these units are operating under expired contracts. Certain unions are growing, certain unions are decreasing. AFSCME now represents probation. They represent the county clerk, and when the county recorder's office gets folded into the clerk's office, they will automatically become union members. Now, we've talked a lot about the rights that we have been able to gain through the organized labor movement. And unfortunately, because there is so much uncertainty at the county building, I wanted to highlight, for me, what is one of the most important rights that we as union members have, and that is the right to strike. Now, obviously, I'm not standing up here advocating for a strike, but we cannot be afraid of it, and we have to plan for it. I appreciated that Lewis came up, but let's not forget, a year or 2 before District 156 got a great contract, they ran a great strike.
Yep.
Now, Patrick may be able to enlighten me, at least as far as I know, during the time that I've lived in McHenry County, no unit of county government has ever struck. So as during the time that I've been a member of AFSCME, we have taken strike votes twice. And let me tell you, that is a terrifying feeling. You don't know where your paycheck's going to come. You don't know if your health insurance is going to lapse. You need support. You need support from your union brothers and sisters. You need support from this community. So, I leave you with the challenge. Again, I am not advocating for a strike, but I would say, if any entity of county government ever decides to take that strike vote, I expect to see all of you out on that picket line. I expect you to take some time off of work and support your union brothers and sisters as they continue to strive to make county government better. Thank you.
Well, unless someone charges the stage here, I think that pretty much concludes our program today. But we cannot end a Labor Day celebration without singing together labor's greatest song and greatest hymn. We don't have any song sheets. I know it pretty well, but I know some of you do too. And I invite anyone who wants to come up here and join me. Otherwise, as we say in church on Sunday morning, stand as you are able. Grasp your neighbors by the hands, raise your fists, and let's sing the great labor anthem, Solidarity Forever. By the union's inspiration, through the workers' blood shall run, there can be no power greater than the people's strength of one. let us stand outcast and starving midst the wonders we have earned, for the Union makes us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the Union makes us strong. Is there aught we hold in common with the greedy parasites who would lash us into serfdom and would crush us with their might? Is there anything left for us but to organize and fight, for the Union makes us strong? Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the Union makes us strong. They have taken untold millions that they never toiled to earn, but without our brain and muscle not a single wheel would turn. Now we stand outcast and starving midst the wonders we have made, for the Union makes us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the Union makes us strong. Solidarity! Thank you very much. Come again next year. Bring your friends, bring your neighbors, bring your flags, bring your militants. We'll need you.